Hello and welcome to BentoBox's The Next Course. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, I am so pleased to introduce you to our virtual event, The Bottom Line, Top Digital Marketing Tips for Your Restaurant. My name is Jenna Postiglione and I am on our marketing team here at BentoBox. But our special guest today is Jimmy Page. Jimmy is the president and founder of Hudson Creative. Hudson Creative is a digital marketing agency with over 10 years of proven success with our top brands in the hospitality industry. They are passionate about food, restaurants, and how to use their digital marketing to build an online presence that attracts new guests and builds loyalty for their clients. Mr. Page has helped develop digital marketing strategies for market leaders like PepsiCo, Delaware North, Compass Group USA, and New York City Tourism and Conventions. His passion for the web began over 12 years ago when he started Hudson Creative as a freelance website developer. Today, he's considered an expert in his field and a sought-out resource for digital marketing growth strategies. Now, before I hand it over to our special guest, I want to go over a few logistical details. This webinar is also being recorded and will be available at our website, www.getbento.com, after the event, as well as at the link our live viewers have joined and registered at. We will end today's presentation with a Q&A, so please feel free to drop your questions in the chat and we'll address them at the end. Jimmy, welcome very, very much.
Thanks so much, Jenna. Thanks for having me and for the generous introduction. I think a lot of what Jenna was saying is just sort of summarizing me as a huge website nerd that's been doing this for a long time. So I'm really happy to be here and to be talking to everybody about your website and how to track value through your website. I've also been working with BentoBox for a really long time, so this is an exciting opportunity for Hudson Creative to partner up with BentoBox, which is, it's a CMS. We work with restaurants and within the hospitality industry as our niche. So I think we've been around BentoBox for a long time, and it's a great product, and we're excited to team up with you for this webinar.
Jimmy, that is why we get along so well, Hudson Creative and BentoBox, because we ourselves are also website nerds, specifically restaurant website nerds, but definitely that's our bread and butter. Although over the years, BentoBox has added much, much more to the marketing and commerce platform, but websites still have a very a soft spot in my heart too.
Very cool. All right, let's talk about how to track value through your BentoBox or other type of website.
Dive in.
So to just sort of set the stage here, last year, 86% of diners who are doing online research to find their next food or dining experience are doing so online. So I think even before we dive into your website or some of these specific channels like Google or social media, I think it's just important to understand the close relationship that restaurants have with online research. And, we're all thinking about the guests that are going to come into our restaurant and trying to understand who that person is. Like 86% of those people are doing online research before making that dining decision. So looking at your restaurant's brand online and how you appear online and how people can find you online is important for, pretty much all of your guests.
I think you've hit it right on the head there, Jimmy. Just to start out, it's funny you say this because that's an interesting statistic that we're quite proud of here at BentoBox, because we've done a lot of research to find that out, and so to help our clients understand this. So I will make a quick plug. If you check out dinerjourney.com, that's a link to the full report where Jimmy has pulled this from, and I think it feels like common knowledge, right? Because we're all searching on our computers to find, what's the best hamburger by me? What's, the latest and greatest in any cuisine in your area, or on vacation. So I would love to plug that, but I think that's the perfect statistic to help understand why we're here today and why that online presence is so important.
It's awesome. Yeah. And if you want to drop the link to that to that study. It was a study powered by BentoBox, and like you said, dinerjourney.com. If everybody here wants to check it out, we use some of the stats from this report in our own sales collateral, like outside of anything related to BentoBox, just because it's a really good study on how diners are interacting with restaurants online. So yeah, that's maybe just its own fun takeaway from today. There's a lot of good stats in there. I want to hit on another stat to sort of start to narrow down our conversation about like the entire world of digital marketing and to talk more specifically about websites, which is, there in terms of a digital marketing campaign, there's a lot of value in social media and in somebody interacting with a post or viewing a video. There's a lot of value in somebody opening an email and those types of impressions. What we're going to talk about today is your website specifically, and tracking and measuring value through your website, which again, it's not the only digital marketing channel, but it's a very, very important one. And how do we know it's an important channel is because 77% of diners are likely to visit a restaurant's website, and we're talking like dine in or takeout and delivery. So again, when you picture your guest audience, your restaurant guests, and try and like really understand who they are and what they're doing, 77% of them are going to hit your website before coming into the restaurant. And whether that's as something as simple as just seeing what your phone number is or where you're located, or viewing your menu and trying to decide whether or not that's something that they want to eat. We get that question a lot, is like, do I even need a website? Like, what about my Google business profile? Or what about, my social media pages? And the answer here is yes, you do need a website, because for diners who are interested in learning more, they're going to click through from those pages to your website, and they're going to want to see what that looks like. So we are going, and how much is your website worth to your business? That's what we're talking about today. So we're going to help you put a number to the value that your website is bringing to the restaurant. So quick summary of the topics that we're going to cover today. We're going to show you how to get started with GA4 and how to make sure that that's installed on your website. But that's just the beginning, is installing that tag on your website. The next step, and the more important work, is setting up conversions, setting up e-commerce tracking, and then understanding, like assigning values to the conversions that we're tracking, or making sure the e-commerce tracking is putting revenue into GA4 so that you can see and understand the value that these things are actually driving to your business. And then we're going to take a look at a real live example of a website that we've set up with this type of value tracking, so we can look at like an example month. So let's get started with Google Analytics.
Jimmy, I'm going to stop you right there. Let's back up even further. I'm going to take the 101 route on this website. I need to first know, what is Google Analytics and why would I need it before I think to even get started as a restaurant owner? Could you back up a little and tell me about that?
For sure. I feel like a lot of people have probably heard the term Google Analytics, or GA4 was the really popular one last year, which was an update to Google Analytics. Google Analytics is the gold standard in website tracking or website analytics. So by installing Google, and it's a free product provided by Google. So all you need is a Google account and a website where you can install the tracking script. And if you install Google Analytics on your website, you can understand which pages people are viewing and where those people are coming from to get to your website at a very basic level. And then, a little bit more about what people are doing on your website, which is what we're going to be talking about today, which is, are they doing specific conversions on your website?
So I've got it. So you start with your website, and you can just leave it there and allow it to be something that exists on the internet. It provides information to your guests, or you can see how well your website's working, or maybe where people are looking on your website. where people are clicking around so that you know maybe those are the areas you should flush out more. Those are the areas that maybe you can remove from your website or update more frequently. So I think I got it. It's basically tracking the usage of your website by your guests.
Definitely. And if you're one of the people on this call saying like, what is Google Analytics? And I'm feeling a little intimidated, that's a great takeaway from today is just like you said, Jenna, just installing Google Analytics on your website and leaving it there gives you access to that information that you can then use later on down the road. If you're one of the people on the call today that's like, yes, I get it, Google Analytics, I know what it is, we're going to go into a little bit more detail about how you can leverage that tool.
And sneak peek to our guests, it's super simple. Jimmy has walked me through it already. And I think there are some very simple ways to put it into place without having to dive too deep and setting up like you're hacking your restaurant website.
Like I am a website nerd, but I'll try and keep it not too deep into the nerd level.
Perfect.
So we're going to start with, so you've installed Google Analytics on your website. The tracking script is there. Now you want to dig a little bit deeper. So we want to set up conversions. Like, what even is a conversion? A conversion is something that somebody's doing on your website that you think is valuable. So, like I said, we work with a lot of restaurants. So we know like off the bat, click to make a reservation, click to order, view the menu, phone call, get directions. Like there are very common conversions that all restaurants share. And so just installing Google Analytics on your website isn't enough. You need to mark these actions because Google doesn't know that you're a restaurant, doesn't know that you're so us being restaurant people, we can help you identify like what are the actions, conversions on your website that you want to mark as conversions so that you can track these more closely and understand, not just how many people are coming to your website, but how many people are coming to your website that want to make a reservation or want to place an order. So enhance, like as you're setting up Google Analytics 4, which is the current version of Google Analytics, they'll automatically set you up with these events that you can kind of see in the top right hand corner of my screen here using there's a checkbox for enhanced measurement. So as long as you select this checkbox during the setup process, all of these normal website events are going to be caught here in your account and set up as events. The next step that you need to do is in the setup or the admin section is click into conversions, where you can set each one of these default events that Google Analytics has set up for you. You can mark it as a conversion. And that way, it's not just an event that's happening on your website. We've now marked it as a conversion. We can use it in our future reporting as marked as a conversion. So we know that this action is more valuable than just any other normal event.
Okay, so you're essentially saying any event on your website that's important to you is a conversion. And that might vary person to person, right? So maybe not everybody has reservations on their website, though you should. So you can decide what's important to you and then just mark it as a conversion and leave it.
Absolutely. Because we work with some like, takeout delivery only. So they're not going to, they may not have reservation as a conversion, or work with like catering only companies that aren't, you're not necessarily placing an order unless you're doing drop off catering. But, for each business, this could be a little bit unique, but, I think for many businesses, it's probably pretty similar too.
That makes great sense. And if a restaurant is unsure of maybe what to set up as conversions, they can talk to someone like your agency. They can talk to their customer success manager to help figure those out.
Definitely. Yeah. And if you're have dabbled in digital marketing and you've seen the word conversion throw around, it's really important to ask, like, what does that mean? What is a conversion specifically? And in these kind of details, when you're doing this setup, like that's where the magic happens. That's where you're making that decision.
I've got it.
Nice. One other item on here too. So once these are set up as conversions, you can click on these three little dots. I don't know if anybody can see my cursor, but the
Yes.
screenshot. Nice. So these three little dots, once you've marked an event as a conversion, you can open these three dots and then set a default conversion value. And this is something we're going to carry with us to more of our conversation in this webinar, is that you can set a value for a phone call or for a reservation or for one of those items. We're going to talk a little bit more about how to set those values and what that means, but it's important to know that you can set your default conversion value here as well. There's two different types of value tracking for conversions or meaningful actions in Google Analytics. The first that we just talked about are conversions, and the second is e-commerce tracking. So with e-commerce tracking, we're tracking a conversion, but this conversion is an actual purchase on your website. So I'm actually going to show an example of this on my screen. So this is a screenshot or a screenshot of Google Analytics, where we've set up all of these events as conversions. So these are listing out the events that we think are meaningful and set as conversions. We have the number of conversions. This is, I think, just looking at a single month here, but the number of conversions, the number of users, and then the value associated with those conversions. This item down here, this conversion event is actually a purchase. So this is somebody coming onto their website, placing a drop-off catering order, and then the value of these events we're tracking as an actual purchase on the website. I'm going to show one more example where the setup is slightly different. So here, we also have these items set up as conversions. And the one here, I'm looking at purchase. Revenue is actually set out in this revenue column. So I think whether you're setting it up as an event value or as a revenue value, those are sort of two different setups. And I won't get into the weeds about that, but I think the overall picture here is that another type of tracking that you can set up using Google Analytics is e-commerce tracking. We're actually tracking the purchase that somebody's making, be it a drop-off catering order, being it a product order, merchandise order, or something. You can track the actual value of that transaction on your website.
So once we set up that e-commerce tracking, it will pull in that revenue without trying. As long as someone makes a purchase, the exact total will go into your Google Analytics.
Exactly. And for conversion values, like we were talking about on the last slide, like a phone call or a form fill or something like that, you don't know the value of that off the bat, because that action is not a transaction. It's just sort of somebody's calling the restaurant from your website. So those ones we have to set our own value to, which takes a little bit more math and a little bit more homework on what that's valued at for the restaurant. But with e-commerce tracking, like you just said, it's going to take that exact value because the transaction is happening on our website.
Great. So that's the only one the math is doing. They're doing the math for us.
Yes, it's a little bit more difficult on the setup, but then easier to do the math on the back.
On the end. Okay, that makes sense. So intrinsically, we know that when someone signs up for your newsletter, clicks to sign up for your newsletter, that's important and valuable to your business, but not necessarily a dollar amount like a merch order would be.
Yes, we can set our own dollar amount because we work in marketing and it's our job to try and value these things, whether or not the operations team believes us or not. But yes, I think that those items, like somebody signing up for a newsletter, those ones we have to assign our own value for.
Perfect.
Nice. Okay, so I want to give an example of this type of setup too. So I was just showing a screenshot from Google Analytics, but I pulled all of that out into a sheet so that we can look at it together here. And so this is an average month from 2023 for a single restaurant location in New York City. And so if we go back a few slides in our conversation, and we understand that 77% of people who are in the restaurant or who, 77% of our guests are touching our website in one way or another before they make it to dine in or take out at the restaurant. So 77% of our total revenue in a given month should be equal to the activity that we see on our website. So the value of these conversions, the value of the e-commerce transactions, all combined should equal 77% of your restaurant's revenue in a given month. And then at that point, we can really understand the value that's being driven through our website and how it relates to top line revenue. So this sort of total column is an exercise that we've done with this restaurant. So this is equal to 77% of their top line revenue. And then now let's like go back through these items. So they're not able to track completed reservations on their website. So instead, what we've done is we've tracked the value of what a click to make a reservation is worth. That's $20 in this instance. There's been over 4,500 clicks to make a reservation on their website. The value of that is over $90,000. And if you think about all those people, then clicking to make a reservation, there's a certain percentage of them that actually come into the restaurant and dine, multiplied by your average check value. That's how we're getting to that value number. And so all of these are tracked as conversions in Google Analytics, views to the menu, which is worth less than a click to make a reservation, but it's still worth something. And phone calls, and we do have some e-commerce orders in here. So these are actually orders that were placed through the website. Private event inquiry is valued higher than a restaurant reservation because the value of that private event is going to be much higher than a reservation. So yeah, I think most people intrinsically understand that signing up for a newsletter, clicking to make a reservation, viewing your restaurant menu, like these things are valuable, but how valuable are they? I think what we're presenting here is a way that you can look at this from a financial point of view and really understand the value that's being driven through your website and what your website is worth to your business by valuing each one of these actions on your website, plus your e-commerce orders, and then understanding the value that your website represents for your restaurant.
This is really starting to make sense. So every time someone clicks on gift cards on your website, that doesn't necessarily mean your business makes $10, but on average, if they're buying, for the one person who buys a $50 gift card averaged out over those 5 clicks, that's $10 each.
Exactly. You're kind of taking the value of a gift card divided by the number of people, who are interested in buying one, who are actually going to convert into a purchase.
Makes sense. And this is where us marketers in the world, this is how we get operations to believe us, right? So we'll work backwards from that 77% number and then say, okay, here's 77% of my monthly revenue. In what I spend in marketing, right? So creating this website, making sure it's flushed out, making sure it has all the right information about my restaurant, that's actual worth 77% of my monthly revenue. That's where you can put your dollars on the line, and it's making a real impact.
Absolutely. And, I think, like we said, we've zoomed in. So now to zoom out again for a second, to put all of this in perspective, is that there are a lot of digital marketing channels. There's email, there's social media, there are paid ads, there's PR and referral traffic and link building and all these things. So I think the website is a very unique part of your digital marketing ecosystem because it sits at the center of all these channels. So somebody might have, you have this amazing video that's produced and you're posted on social media and you're boosting that post and they learn about your restaurant that way. But then at some point they're going to want to come to your website and view your menu before they make that decision to dine there. And so I think what we're offering here, since the website is unique that it sits at the center of that ecosystem, we're offering a way to really understand the value that's being driven through your website.
Jimmy, I'd like you to go back to that month example one more time. We had a question come in that I think would be great to answer live, just for you to extra clarify. Someone has asked that 260,450 down at the bottom. That's not actual revenue except the catering orders. Can you clarify for them how that how that is the revenue?
Yeah, so this 260,000 represents 77% of their top line monthly revenue. So this number is calibrated to match 77% of the restaurant's monthly revenue. And so what we did was we actually worked backwards from that number, and then we set values to the rest of these conversions so that we could get this to equal 260,000, because we know that that equaled 77% of that restaurant's revenue. So then in order to kind of value each one of these conversions, I think we used what we know about restaurants, and that a reservation is worth more than a view to the menu, and that a private event inquiry is worth more than a reservation, and assigned values to these to work backwards and meet this number.
That's very helpful clarification, and that's why people like these restaurant owners employ someone like Hudson Creative to help you back into that number, to help back you out of that number. So that 260,000, that every restaurant has that number today. You can calculate 77% of your top line revenue. And we rely on that 77% number, but that is from data at BentoBox that we are making sure is a reputable number in order for you to make informed business decisions, like this one here, to help give you a little bit more insight into your marketing.
Yeah, and I think, this number is going to be different for everybody. There might be another restaurant that's like, not in New York City or somewhere else that's like, that number is crazy. But this can help you understand the value that's being driven through your website. And then, where we're gonna go from here with the conversation is, either overall looking at a marketing budget. So if you're going to establish a marketing budget for your restaurant, this number helps a lot to kind of understand the value of each one of these different revenue channels, and where you might want to invest more of your marketing dollars. It also helps to answer probably like the most common question that we get all the time, which is like, we know that we should be running a Facebook or Instagram ad campaign, but how much should we be spending on that campaign? And people are usually looking towards us because we're, a restaurant digital marketing agency, to answer that question. But there's a lot that goes into that, and it has probably more to do with your business and what are your revenue drivers versus just a sort of a blank recommendation that we could make. So I think looking at these numbers is a much smarter way to really understand what you should be spending on like a Meta or a Google ad, or just in general, like if it's other channels like email marketing or hiring an agency or whatever, to understand like what your marketing budget should be.
You've skipped ahead of yourself, Jimmy. I think you're going to, I think that's the perfect segue into the next slide.
Nice. And that was a great question. Okay, so we're gonna, I was just kind of teasing this a little bit, but we're gonna talk through some real campaign examples that we've run for other restaurant or hospitality companies, so that we can all get an idea of what we're talking about here with a real live example. So first, this is a Google search ad campaign for a catering company based in Los Angeles. They hired us, and the cost that we spent to Google was a little over $4,000, and the value that we tracked in GA4 was almost $20,000. So it's almost a 4.8x return on ad spend is the acronym here. Which means, so we're calculating, based on the ad spend, like how many dollars did we generate for each dollar that was spent in media. So for every $1 spent in media, we generated $4.80 in value from the business. And so how did we track this value? Give you just like a few of the business details that we were just talking about before, like kind of compared to top line revenue, or how do we calculate the value of a conversion. So their average event, average event revenue is $17,000 for an average event. Um, Whenever they get leads in for like an event leads, like we want somebody to host an event, they close 3% of the leads that they get. So we can divide that $17,000, multiply it by 3%, and we see that like on average, an event lead for this company is worth $510. So we know that through the website, like for a form submission or a phone call, which is an actual event lead, like those are going to be worth $510. So if we can run a campaign that generates, in this instance, it was 32 leads for the $4,000 in media spent, plus 302 catering menu views or downloads. Like the total value of that to their business was $19,000. And so yeah, that's like the return. Yeah, I think that's probably an interesting breakdown looking at the conversions and what we were talking about before, which is when somebody's talking about a conversion, what does that even mean? Like, yes, I understand a conversion valuable. In this instance, the conversions were form leads and menu downloads for their catering menu.
So this restaurant did a little bit of homework before they jumped into this, right? So they knew their average event revenue first and foremost, and they counted how many leads or catering inquiries they got, or private event inquiries they got maybe monthly, and tracked their win rate on those private events. So maybe they have a 3% win rate. So that means of all the people that call or submit for a private event, 3% say, yes, I'm booking my wedding, I'm booking my baby shower, whatever it might be.
Exactly, exactly. And 3% is pretty low, honestly. I think that like with other companies that we've worked with, whether if you're kind of meshing together private events or like off premise catering, 3% is pretty low. But in this instance, they have they're like a $17,000 event average is also really high. So I
Sure.
think this company is positioned trying to get kind of the like the top tier or like higher income bracket leads, making so I think, for another business, if your average event size was $5,000 or something, you'd probably be looking for a little bit higher close rate, and then maybe the value, or just more leads in general, so that you could close a few more of those, and that might dramatically change like what the value of that conversion or that lead into your inbox is.
That makes sense. So it's really up to the restaurant to decide what their value is, and look at what's most important to them, right? So maybe it's not private events, maybe it's catering, maybe it's online orders. But before we move on to the next example, and I really like this one, I want you to maybe just mention what a Google search ad is, and how those were hitting visitors on Google.
Yes, thanks. See, I told you when we practice for this, I'm going to need like a little rewind on some of this.
Jimmy, what do
So,
you mean practice? This is live television here, Jimmy.
um, a Google, so we is an example here. So a Google search ad campaign is a text ad. So there's no image associated with it. It's only the copy, and there's copy limitations on how long the ad can be. And so the example here is somebody searching on Google for catering companies in Los Angeles. This was like an example keyword that we used for this campaign. So somebody going to Google search, typing in a specific term, and with Google search ads, you can choose the terms that you want to advertise on. So, we think catering companies in Los Angeles is the right fit for the audience that we're trying to reach. We're going to add that to our list of keywords that we want to advertise on for this campaign. And then you have ad text that's hopefully inviting and enticing enough to make somebody want to click on the ad. And then they're brought from Google search results after clicking on that ad over to your website, where we can then track whether or not they convert. And I think another interesting like piece to mention for Google Ads is Yeah. I think we'll get into sort of social and Facebook and Instagram ads and how that might differ. But yeah, that's kind of like just a description of Google ads and how those work.
Yeah. So when I'm Googling catering companies Los Angeles, that first one you'll notice says sponsored at the bottom. That's the one we're dealing with.
Yeah. And these aren't these yeah, won't we could do like catering companies and so this would be we could give an example of like all these where they're like sponsored results here.
Right. So Sage and Zest or Crisp Events. And that's making sure. I mean, there's other ways that you can pop up early on the Google results, like your search engine optimization, but this is making sure that you pop up first because you've sponsored and paid for that slot.
Yeah, and there's a lot of discussion around and generational discussion around who clicks on these ads and who doesn't click on these ads. But they are, it's pretty discreet, this little sponsored note here. So I think, if you're not the most tech savvy person in the world and you see these and you've come to Google to ask a question and it's providing an answer to that question, and that's like the first top result that you see here. Um, there are a lot of people who click on these results and expect that what they click on is going to be a valuable answer to their question.
I think truly, despite any sponsored, not sponsored, no, I can tell you for sure that no one's clicking on page 2 of Google. So
Yeah.
making sure you pop up on that first page is definitely the right move. So I can definitely see why that sponsored is important there to make yourself pop up fast.
Another trend that we're seeing that is worth noting here for anybody running their own Google search ads or working with an agency to run them is that Google search and SEO companies have gotten a really bad rap for writing like machines. Full circle now, we actually have machines that write some of this anyways, but like not in our case, I think we're still giving a lot of thought into what the text is that you're putting on these headlines and on these descriptions, and people should have some fun with it. And yes, it's not there's a small thumbnail image here and most of the ad is text, but that doesn't mean that you can't write something that's cool and fun and creative that still reaches your target audience and makes your result stick out more than somebody else's result in these. So I think, yeah, again, like your target audience, if you write something that's a hook or something that's going to make them want to click on that. Uh, Pricing is a good example that Google even like sort of states in their guidelines is that if you can include a price, people are more likely to click on something that includes a price. But even I don't know. I guess think of writing an email subject line, but for Google search and creating something that's really exciting and makes somebody want to click on that result.
Yeah, I think you can get creative with those, and I think it would pay off. Just another plug for why marketing and having a marketing brain is so important on your staff.
Awesome. So let's look at another example. This example was run for a much long. So one thing maybe I didn't mention, the last campaign, the duration was 3 months. So it was a 3-month campaign. This one we're looking at a longer time frame. So an 8-month campaign. They ran this for most of last year. And so I think the higher return on ad spend here has some correlation with the length of time that the campaign was running. The longer you're running a marketing campaign, the more opportunity you have to see how that campaign is performing and then optimize on that performance and help it perform better. And so, yeah, so this campaign was both Google search and Facebook, Instagram ads. And the Facebook, Instagram ads were visual. So they had an image, there were no video ads associated with this particular campaign. It was only static images on Facebook, Instagram, and then really catchy captions to go with those ads. And then Google search campaign that we're similar to what we were just describing. And in this case, the restaurant was promoting drop-off catering orders. So they're looking to drive people to their website, to a landing page that talked about their drop-off catering offering. And then it had a big button, multiple big buttons that said, click to order. It didn't drive them directly to their drop-off catering ordering system. And we did that purposely. We drove them to a website landing page first before they got entered into the drop-off catering system, so that people could learn about the offering. And then even if they didn't place the order in that moment, at least we've talked to them about our brand and our offering and who we are. And so they're some of that will stick in your memory the next time that you wanted to place a drop-off catering order. But we still wanted to measure, directly from the ads, what was the value driven in terms of the conversions and how we had valued those conversions. So the return on ad spend was an 8x return, and that was for about $8,000 spent over an 8-month period. Their average order value was $930. They had a 5% close rate from people who clicked to order from that landing page, who actually then placed an order. So 5% of those people placed an order. And so we were able to determine that a click to order for this restaurant was worth $46.50.
That's really valuable. I think I really like that you focused on not driving them immediately to the catering offering, because very few people are scrolling on Facebook and say, I'm about to spend $900 on catering today, without maybe a plan for why they might need catering. But that brand, seeing the menu, seeing the vibe of the website, which should reflect your actual food and atmosphere, all of those together stick in someone's brain, and that has value for when diners are going looking. And that 86% of times that they're doing that research, you've got them to do the research before they even intended to.
Yeah, and you nailed it with the meta. So like Facebook, Instagram ads, somebody's just scrolling on Facebook or Instagram, like probably to look at pictures of cute babies or cats or something like that. They're not looking for drop-off catering, but they see an ad, they see something that piques their interest enough so that they want to click on it. And again, they're at home in their pajamas and they're not ready to place a drop-off catering order now by any means, but they made it to a landing page, like you're saying, that talked about the offering and helped them identify with that type of food, or where they're located, or how amazing the pictures look on that web page. And then they can click into order later if they want. But if you've sort of taken up that space in their mind and their memory, when they are ready to place that order, or when they see, your website or are walking by your restaurant or something later, there's sort of that double recognition of what they've seen and associated with. Which leads us to our last example, which talks even more about this idea of marketing and branding and how these kind of relate to top line revenue, even if not directly through conversion values on your website. So this campaign is showing a 1.3 return on ad spend. So somebody in the audience might say, Jimmy, if you're trying to like feature your agency on this BentoBox webinar, why would you show an ad campaign that you ran that only has a 1.3 return on ad spend, which is lower than some of the other campaigns? And so this ad campaign was only on Facebook. So we're only using Facebook, Instagram ads, most of which were video. There were some static ads mixed in there, but most of these ads were videos. So kind of like we were talking about with the web page for drop-off catering in our last example, this video itself stands as, a marketing element where somebody can watch the video on Facebook or Instagram, get really excited about the takeout and delivery. This was a sushi brand. And so they can get really excited about the food, and maybe they're not ready to place an order right now, but they still watch the video on Instagram. They're, thumbing through stories on Instagram. They watch the video. They're like, wow, that looks really good. Next time I'm ready to order lunch when I'm at work, I'm going to think of this restaurant. So our return on ad spend for actual orders booked from that ad was pretty low because a lot of people were just watching the video on Instagram. They weren't necessarily clicking through to place an order. Um, but we still did show a return on ad spend. I think the more important metric here is that during this ad was run in December. So to measure our results, we were looking at November results at the restaurant versus December results. Their top line revenue increased $29,000 between November and December in the same time period that we were running these ads. So while the return on investment directly from the ad wasn't a big deal, there were a lot of people, based on that measurement, there are a lot of people who were learning about the restaurant from that awareness ad and then visiting the website to place an order at a later time. And so I think even though your tracking and your return on ad spend and what you see in Google Analytics doesn't maybe say that this is the best performing campaign, it's a great moment to take a step back and say, all right, this was an awareness ad. We helped to build awareness, which helped to drive orders and increase our top line revenue, even if we didn't see the number of people clicking through and converting that we wanted to from that campaign.
And something I notice is not on here is something like follows to that web page or to that Instagram or Facebook page. So that's another thing. It's when you grab those people in with just one video, you're keeping and holding their attention longer. I would also like to point out the time frame of both of these. I can only imagine the last two ads. I can only imagine that was somewhat strategic, right? So in December, you're looking to grab people's attention for something like drop-off catering. The holidays are coming up. People are looking, they're saying, enough with the kitchen. I just cooked for Thanksgiving. I'm ready to outsource this. So I think you can think about the time of the year, the time you'd like to drive more sales, the time you'd like to get in front of people when you know they might be ordering more often than not. So I can see a lot of things that you didn't put in here that were really smart choices on the part of yourself and also the restaurant.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Q4 is a big quarter for all restaurants. I think there's a lot of people around Thanksgiving, around the holidays, looking to dine out. And so I think being prepared for that time of year and making sure that you're ready to take advantage of the higher demand that's coming during that period is a really great way to plan for success for your marketing.
And it's only January, folks, so we have 12 months to figure it out. Well, wonderful. Thank you very much, Jimmy. We have a few questions that have popped into the chat and also have been submitted a bit prior. So could we kick it off for some Q&A?
Let's do it.
Okay, great. One question that came in from the examples, is there a tactical reason for the duration of these ads? Can you talk about maybe why you chose those durations?
I think in some of them, the 3-month campaign was the first one was to gather like holiday event catering leads. So I think that ad was positioned for October through December in order to try and target people searching for, events or social events that they were planning during the holiday season. The other campaign was an 8-month campaign that I think was really for drop-off catering orders that was really just meant to kind of like grow their offering over time. So I tried to be conscious of providing examples for both shorter term and longer term duration campaigns. So maybe the answer would be yes and no. But I think it's one good thought or takeaway that could help answer that question for your restaurant would be like, your advertising or marketing efforts are going to do better during the higher demand periods, which can be different for every restaurant. It could be that there's certain days of the week where you have higher demand, or there's certain times of year, whether that you host a special event or you do something that you're known for, or just the holidays are here and the demand is higher. So I think using the periods where there's lower demand as planning periods so that you can really take advantage of those higher demand periods. And even if you're doing awareness marketing during that time period to grow your social following or grow your email newsletter list or something, there are a lot of ways you can take advantage of the higher demand and more popular timeframes for your restaurant in terms of a marketing perspective. So I think those are the times where you absolutely should be running campaigns. You may want to be running campaigns during lower demand periods, depending on your objective or goal, but the higher demand periods that's your opportunity to take advantage of those.
Thanks. I have another question here that I think maybe speaks to more of the wider audience that we have on the call. Do you know the average return on ad spend for a Google search or one of those Facebook or Instagram campaigns?
That's a really good question. I put some shining stars in this presentation. So I think even I was looking at, like, I don't want to show somebody just the best of the best and not talk about campaigns that maybe don't offer a 5x return on investment. The way that I think and talk to restaurant operators about return on investment is you have to think about your media spend, which is what we were looking at, return on media spend. You also have to think about the people or the agency that you're paying to do these things. And in addition to the money that somebody's paying to Google or Facebook, Instagram, they're also paying us, an agency retainer for our time to help them set up and run that campaign. You should be able to take your agency retainer plus the money that you're spending on media and make sure that you're at least breaking even from that money that you're spending. And if you're able to do that, you can create a really special scenario where if you can at least break even, the guests that you're attracting through that campaign should be new guests who don't know about your restaurant and they're experiencing you for the first time. If that person then comes back a few times throughout the year, this is a metric in marketing that we call customer lifetime value. So if you can break even in the short term on the agency fees and the marketing spend that you're putting together, and you're delivering an amazing product, those people are going to come back throughout the year to order again. So I think that's a great starting place for any campaign, is to make sure that your agency fees plus your media spend, you're at least at break even on your return on investment.
And Jimmy, that's where BentoBox comes into play. We team up really well here because once you do have those diners through the door, I think you can turn on things like loyalty programs in the marketing and commerce platform to make sure you're getting, once you've got the diners captive, bringing them back through the door for repeat visits and making sure they're a really happy, loyal customer. So there is a secret sauce. You just have to get comfortable with that technology.
Yeah, and a system like BentoBox allows you to sort of capture all of that first party marketing data, and then, like you're saying, like the actual value of somebody coming to order or dine at your restaurant is worth a little bit more because you're gathering their information and then able to use it for loyalty programs, like you said.
Yeah. So we have time for one more question. And I think it's a good one, especially when you're thinking about what you have as your online presence today. Maybe that you got really excited about this webinar, but you're not super proud and you don't love the look of your website right now. And this restaurant is also still making changes to the content. Should they wait to run an ad until after their website is more complete, or is it worth the money to run the ad now?
That's a good question. So yeah, so like if you're, and this is everybody, myself included, like you want your website to be better. You're looking at it, you're like, well, I'm hosting this webinar with BentoBox this week. I wish that we, had all these extra things on all these big plans that we have for additions to our website. So, so if you're not happy with the look of your website, should you invest in advertising? Sort of sounds like the question. It's not a black and white question, so I think there's gray area. What I will say is that There are clients that we've worked with that when we come on board, they're just driving an ad campaign to their homepage. So maybe it's an ad for something specific, like making a reservation or their lunch offering or something that they want to push lunch. So they create an ad campaign, but that ad is just running towards their homepage, which is not a great advertising investment because you should have a landing page for that campaign that speaks more directly to what you're advertising. So I think you should at least have a landing page on your website that you feel comfortable with and you feel comfortable with the offering before investing in advertising. If your website is awful and you're going to spend money, additional money, like advertising that, it would be equivalent to somebody coming into your restaurant and then like having a subpar experience and then you wishing that they were going to like come back again and again and become a regular. So I think if you want people to become forever guests, like you want to be proud of what they're clicking into from that ad. And some of that ad money may be better spent towards, making sure that you have an amazing looking website in the beginning of the year, which is where we are right now. And then so that you can kind of prepare yourself to take advantage of some of the other opportunities through the rest of the year.
I think that's really good advice. Jimmy, we have learned so much from you and your expertise from Hudson Creative. I want to thank you so very much for joining us today. I want to share with our guests today, if you'd like to learn more or if you have any follow-up questions or maybe we didn't get to answer your question on today's webinar, please reach out to jp@hudsoncreative.com and you can check out more of their work at hudsoncreative.com. If you have any questions for BentoBox, please reach out to webinars@getbento.com and we'd be happy to answer those for you. Jimmy, thank you again. And thank you all for joining this webinar.
Thank you, Jenna.
Bye-bye.
Bye.